All right, so good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jesse, and I am your virtual adventure guide here with Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants. And if you're joining us for the first time, we are all about bringing conservation, adventure, and science into classrooms around the world. Now, today is a very special day, not just because it's Halloween, but because we have gotten underway with our epic Hope for Wildlife broadcast series. This is a partnership between us at Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants, the incredible team at Conservation Optimism, and the IUCN Green Status of Species. And the point of this program series is to highlight that there is a lot of reason for optimism and hope in the world of conservation. There are dedicated and passionate people across the globe that are working to bring back species from the brink and lead us to a future with abundant biodiversity. Now, today is for the birds. Earlier off, we started live with penguins with Dr. Grant Humphreys in Edinburgh, and we're going to go with a second and special bird species in just a minute. But before we get underway, a quick housekeeping note. If you're joining us live today, we are going to have a Kahoot quiz together between the talk and the Q&A. So if you want to pull up this Kahoot.it and input this game pin, you can play along with us between and have a little bit of fun. I also want to note that like all our programs, this one will be on YouTube forever. So if you love what you hear today, you can check out more on our YouTube channel. Now, we are doing a double new feature today. We've got a new speaker on a new topic that we've never had before with an organization we've actually never featured here before, which seems shocking at Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants with 3,000 broadcasts, and that is BirdLife International. This is the leading charity nonprofit in the world working to conserve birds across the globe with tons of partner organizations under their umbrella. They do such incredible work. And today we're joined live by Claudia Hermes. She's joining us in Cambridge in the UK, and she's going to be talking to us today about Californian condors. When we came up with the idea of this series, condors were our first species that we wanted in because they're such an iconic conservation story. And so I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to turn it over to Claudia to blow our minds and tell us the really cool tale of the condor and welcome in. And I can't wait to get underway. This is so great, Claudia.
Hi, guys. Hello. Thanks for having me.
So I know you've got a lot to share with us today. So if you want to bring up your presentation and dive right in, I'm so excited to learn more. I think I'm going to learn just as much as the kids today. So this is going to be fun.
I hope so. Okay, let me share my presentation. So I hope you can see that.
It looks great. Let's just drag the little sharing your screen button off the screen. Otherwise, you're good. Perfect.
All right.
There you go. That's okay.
Right. So, yeah, I'm going to tell you the story of the California condors today. I hope you're as excited as I am because these are truly remarkable birds. So I'm gonna, or is it not working? It's not working. Oh no, my presentation stopped working.
Oh, it's going to come back. Something should go wrong in every video broadcast. Otherwise, are you having fun at all? It's what we've been doing for 3 years together now. If you need a second, feel free to come out of it and try again, or press the little, yeah, there you go. Let's bring it up again and it'll work the second time. That's what they say. Second time's the charm, I think.
Second time is the
charm. Yeah. It's our new phrase we're inventing for today's program.
Okay,
while you're doing that, oh, there we go.
Is it working now?
It's working now?
Yes.
Hey, second slide.
Perfect. Second time. Yeah. Okay, so sorry about that, but yeah, second time lucky. Okay, so I am gonna tell you the story about the California condors today. And yeah, my presentation is gonna have 3 different chapters. In the first chapter, I'm gonna tell you the extraordinary story of the California condor, what makes them so special, and how it happened that they were pushed to the brink of extinction and then came back. And then we're going to get a bit into the data. So we're going to see how they are assessed on the red list. So what is the extinction risk? And then what is the recovery potential? So let's get right into it. This is a California condor. The California condors are the largest vultures of North America. They have a wingspan of up to 3 meters. This is huge. So if you extend your arms, if you stretch out your arms to both sides, a condor would be much larger. Just imagine how large they are. So the condors, they live only in the west of the Rocky Mountains and near the Pacific coast of the US and northern Mexico. This is what they look like from a distance, from a close distance. So they're maybe not the prettiest birds in the world. They have these funny colored faces with some wrinkles and no feathers on, but as they say, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. The California condors, they occur in many different landscape types, from sea level to mountain tops. But areas that they particularly like are like mountainous areas with rocks and cliffs. So they can fly very long distances of more than 100 kilometers to search for the carcasses of large mammals, which they feed on. And the California condors are sacred birds to many Native American tribes. In the past, the condors were much more common and widespread than they are today. So actually, during the Ice Age, the condors, they ranged across almost the entire North American continent, from Canada to Mexico and across the US to the East Coast. So they found fossil remains in New York and in Florida. They fed on the carcasses of these large ice-aged mammals, like, for example, saber-toothed tigers or giant sloths or mastodons or whatever they had there in the Ice Age. So when these animals went extinct, the condors also retreated to the Rocky Mountains and the Pacific coast, so to the western part of the North American continent. But the real declines only started when the European settlers arrived to the western US in the mid-19th century. So the causes of the declines were mainly lead poisoning, hunting, and habitat loss. What is lead poisoning? So you have to imagine that hunters would go out and shoot large mammals, and to shoot them, they used bullets that contained lead. So a bullet would then fragment into very tiny little pieces in the body of the animals that they shoot. And when a condor then eats from that dead animal, they can accidentally like ingest these little fragments and become poisoned by the lead that the bullets contain. And yeah, they were also hunted, so people would shoot them directly. And habitat loss, of course, also played a major role. So the human population increased, they built large cities, they needed space for agriculture. So the areas that were suitable for condors, they disappeared. The population declines went on until by 1987, only 27 condors were left. And then people started noticing that these species is in serious trouble. So the decision was made to bring them all to zoos to start a captive breeding program. So this was a very controversial decision, and it was not taken lightly because it was unclear whether the condors would actually breed in captivity and whether it would be possible to reintroduce them later to the wild. It was not clear whether they would be able to survive in the wild after being held in zoos for some time. But they decided to go ahead with the plan, and the last birds were captured. And with that, the California condors were completely gone from the wild. But lucky enough, things worked out well for the condors. So they were bred in captivities. In the zoos, the population grew rapidly because the females could produce multiple clutches. So normally a condor lays only one egg in every 2 years. But in the zoos, they could take away an egg and put it into an incubator, and then the female would lay another egg. So the population would increase more rapidly than it normally does in the wild. And then they started training the birds for reintroductions. So they reared the chicks using like puppets that looked like condors so that they would not be imprinted on humans. And they also trained them to avoid structures like power lines, for example, so to minimize the risk of the condors then being like electrocuted or to collide with these structures. And then in 1992, the first individuals were released in California. So yeah, here on the picture, you can see what a release may look like. It looks relatively unspectacular. So the condor would be transported in one of these boxes where you can put, where you can put a pet in. They open the door and the condor just, flies off. The releases continue until today, and the wild population is now slowly growing. So with time, more and more birds were released to California and also to additional sites in further inland in northern Arizona and in Utah. Also, there's a population now in northern Mexico. And as of this year, the first individuals were released in northern California. The wild population is now over 300 individuals, and also chicks hatch in the wild so they can breed successfully. That's what you can see here on the photo. This is a wild condor nest with a little chick standing next to its father. But the condors, they still remain conservation dependent because there are still many threats out there for the condors. The largest threat to this date remains lead poisoning. So this is the same reason that initially caused their rapid decline back in the 19th and 20th century. So many hunters still use lead ammunition. And overall, in the wild, more condors die than are being born. So the population, in order to grow, they still heavily rely on actions, including further reintroductions and also medical treatment for lead poisoning or for ingestion of plastic, things like that. So yeah, what you can see here in the picture is a condor that is being prepared to have an X-ray done. I think it's the zoo in Los Angeles that is doing that. So these condors, the population is monitored closely, and when researchers see that an animal is sick, they capture it and take it out for medical treatment, and only when it's healthy again, they release it back to the wild. Yeah, so this is a short summary of the condor story. But yeah, before we dive into the interpretation of the data and what this tells us about the extinction risk and the recovery potential of the condors, I've got some fun facts about the condors for you. So, number one, California condors change color with age. So the young condors, as you can see here in the picture, they have a black head actually, and they're also more black on the wings. And the head turns then red and yellow when they grow older. So when you see a condor, you can see by the color in its face how old it roughly is. Fact number two, all condors are numbered. You may have seen it already in the pictures that I showed. They have a unique number that is clipped to their wings. This allows the researchers to identify them, so they know which individual that is. And yeah, you can see that from a distance. When you have binoculars, you can read the number. So you can identify each condor by its number to the very individual. Number three, the California condors are among the largest birds in the world. As I already said, their wingspan is up to 3 meters. But the largest flying bird, this is this one here, the wandering albatross. This can get to up to 3.70 meters. Just imagine how large that is. And number four, a fact that I particularly like, before they released the first California condors to the wild, they tested reintroductions with Andean condors. So Andean condors are closely related to California condors. They look a bit similar. They just have this fun shape on their head. But yeah, they're closely related. They occur in South America. And they were basically the test dummies for the releases for the California condors. This is because the researchers wanted to see how the Andean condors would behave to make some guesses whether the releases of the California condors would work. So they tested that with the Andean condors, observed them, liked what they would see, and then they recaptured the Andean condors to get ready for the California condors. Right, so let's get into the data. What does this tell us about the extinction risk of the California condor? Is it close to extinction or is it safe? So the extinction risk of all animals and plant species is assessed via the IUCN Red List. The condors are listed as critically endangered, which means that they are at an extremely high risk of extinction, despite the recovery that they underwent in recent years and all that's being done to save them. So let's take a little detour. What is the red list? Red list, or the IUCN Red List of Threatened Species, which is its official name, is called the Barometer of Life. The red list gives us information about the health of biodiversity, information about the status of animal and plant species in the world. So the red list uses information on the distribution range of a species, on its population size, and on population trends to classify that species into one of 7 categories of extinction risk. This is what you can see here on the right. These are the 7 categories. So the lowest is called least concern. That means that a species is not at imminent risk of extinction. The next highest is called near threatened, which means that they may become threatened in the near future. Then the next ones are vulnerable, endangered, and critically endangered. They are the so-called threatened categories. And then if you go even further, you get to extinct in the wild. This is what the condors used to be when they were all taken into the zoos. That means that every single individual has gone from the wild, but they can still be found in zoos or some captive facility. And then, of course, extinct. That means they are completely gone, like dinosaurs. If you want to learn more about the red list, I have added here a link. It's iucnredlist.org. There you can find some more information on how these assessments are done. Okay, so why are the California condors listed as critically endangered? This is because they have an extremely small population. So here on the map, you can see where the condors have been reintroduced. So this is a map of Western North America. Up there in the north, it's Canada. Then it's the Western US, and in the south, it's Mexico. And in green, you can see where the populations of the condors are now, where they have been reintroduced. So the numbers that I'm giving here, they are actually estimates from 2020, so 2 years old, when the California condor was last assessed for the red list. The largest population is in Southern California, between San Francisco and Los Angeles, with some 200 individuals. Then we have another population further inland in northern Arizona and in southern Utah that has 100 individuals. So it's roughly half of the size of the Californian population. And an even smaller one in northern Mexico, in Baja California, with some 40 individuals. And earlier this year, I think in July, the first 4 individuals were released to a new site in Northern California, to an area where they used to be extinct since the late 19th century, to indigenous lands of the Yurok tribe. So this gives us a total of some 340 condors in the wild. But for a red list assessment, we can only count the individuals that have already bred in the wild. We call that they have produced viable offspring. It sounds a bit technical, but yeah, it means basically they had chicks that survive. So, and currently, these are some 90 to 100 birds. So 90 to 100 birds have already had chicks. So this is their official population size. And this size, 90 to 100 mature individuals, together with the fact that they are scattered in these 4 subpopulations, and also the fact that they're still suffering a high mortality, meaning that very many individuals actually die in the wild, means that they qualify as critically endangered. So if we go back one slide, critically endangered means that they are just one step away from extinction. Right, so that does not sound too bad, but too good actually, but is there still hope for the California condor? What is their potential for recovery? We know that without the work from the zoos and all the organizations that were involved in the breeding program and in the releases, the condors would be extinct now, that is for sure. But we also know that they are reacting quite well to conservation actions. So the reintroductions, they work, and the released individuals, they become established, they breed, they hatch chicks, and also the medical treatments work. So the population grows very, very slowly, and it's a lot of effort, but the population does recover. So let's put the recovery into a perspective. The map that you see here, it's similar to the one that I showed earlier. So it's, again, Western North America, and in green, you see where the condors are now. But here you also see in red where the condors would be if we humans would not have pushed them too close to extinction like some decades ago. So basically, across all Western USA and also bits of southern Canada and of northern Mexico. So this is their original range. And if we then look at the green dots here, we see that now they only occur in a tiny fraction of this original range. But again, let's put that into a perspective. So we subdivided the original range into 4 separate spatial units. These are the ones that you can see here. So the Pacific Northwest, California, Arizona and Inland West, and Baja California. And by now, the condors have already established breeding populations in 3 of these 4 spatial units. For the Pacific Northwest, things are going to take a little while longer because we only have 4 individuals there, but the releases will continue. And we know that the condors react well on these reintroductions. So the population will grow also there in the Pacific Northwest. So is there anything that we can do to help the condors to recover further and to expand their ranges into more of these red areas? So yeah, the answer is yes, we can. We can eliminate threats to the wild condors. As I said before, the main threat is still lead poisoning. So this could probably be reduced by just trying to ban the use of lead ammunition. If we could make hunters use a different type of bullets, then probably the condors would not be poisoned anymore if they accidentally ingest fragments of these bullets. So yeah, if we manage to eliminate these threats, this would reduce the need to continue the medical treatments and the reintroductions. And this then has obviously several benefits. It saves a lot of money on one hand, because obviously it is really, really expensive. The captive breeding programs and the releases, it costs a lot of money. And on the other hand, we could reintroduce the condors to many more sites because we would not need them to boost the populations that exist now. So if we manage to eliminate the threats, this will help the populations to become self-sustaining. So that means to no longer be dependent on conservation interventions. And they would grow even more. They would expand their ranges. They would recolonize the red areas, the parts of the indigenous range where they are currently not present. But what we have to be aware of is that this will likely take a long time. So condors are quite long-lived. They first start breeding when they're at least 6 or 8 years of age. And they only lay 1 egg every 2 years. So it will take a long time until the population is actually growing. But for the condors, there is definitely hope. There is a high potential that they may recover even further and expand their range further into the area that they used to occupy more than 100 years ago. Yeah, and with that, I am at the end of my presentation.
Fantastic. Well, Claudia, thank you so much for sharing all that. And I hope our students take the opportunity to see that puppet picture. I'll make sure they get a link of that, because people with condor puppets, feeding them is one of my favorite things in all of conservation. And really, it's so amazing to think of a species that is more than 10 times increased in population. Like, there's very few analogous stories like that in the world. And it's entirely the result of people like you doing such dedicated work to make sure that we can save these incredible creatures. So a huge thank you to you. And what we're going to do now is test some understanding. Dive in with our Kahoot together with all our students live and on YouTube. And then we'll dive in with questions. So if you guys want to put your thinking caps on, get some questions ready for Claudia, we'll start with our Kahoot. If you're new to Kahoot, the faster you answer, the more points you get. And you don't win anything, but you do win Claudia and I's everlasting respect. So I think that's worth something. Feel free to get in your and Claudia, you can help us out when there's a few seconds to spare in each of these queries, but we are going to get underway and start our Kahoot off together with our Halloween themed background. Here we go. Hope for Condors today. I'll also share birdlife.org and BirdLife News on Twitter as fantastic resources to learn more. So Claudia talked about this. Condors are one of the world's largest birds. How long is their wingspan? Is it 5 feet, 7 feet, 9 feet and more, or 15 feet? What do we think? 8 answers in so far? Get those queries in. I'll give you a hint. There's no bird that has a wingspan that's one of these answers. No living creature. There were things that had 15-foot wingspans. That was terrifying. But almost all you got this right. Way to go. About 9 feet, a little over that for some of the bigger ones, which is spectacular, making them one of the largest birds on the planet. Golden Dove has our lead. Okay, let's go to question 2, folks. Diving in with our second quiz. Condors were once one of the world's most threatened birds. They still are critically endangered, as we noted throughout the broadcast. How many of them were left? Was there one left? 27, 150, or 10,000? Condors everywhere. What do we think? 18 answers so far. We did talk about this early on in the program. We talked about where they've gotten to as well. And I'll also give you the hint that one might be too few. I know it's hard to bring something back when it's down to one, but most of you got this right. Way to go. 27 birds, which is, again, insanely small to end up in the population where it's at. Golden Duck has our lead, so we've got a bird theme going with our leaders still, which is good, I think. Very suitable. So zoos are world leaders in conservation. I love having zoo programs on the broadcast. And which one in particular played a big role in California condor comeback? Cincinnati, Toronto, San Diego, or Bronx? And I'll note that all 4 of these zoos are really spectacular organizations. If you live near any of them, check them out. They do such great work. Claudia, what do we think? You know, they're in the same state as a lot of our condors. So San Diego is our answer. I like that a few of you thought Cincinnati. That's good. It's a great place too. But San Diego Zoo, which is my favorite zoo I've ever visited. And I grew up in Toronto, so I feel really bad about saying that. But San Diego really is like the elite upper echelon of zoos on the planet. All right, we've got Golden Duck with Golden Dove in second, leading to our final question. And then you guys get to ask Claudia a bunch of questions. So this was mentioned very casually in the broadcast, but plays a really big role in the conservation optimism extra resources that you can check out. Which indigenous tribe in the U.S. was instrumental in helping bring back the condor? Chippewa, Apache, Yurok, or Mi'kmaq? This is a tough one. I don't expect you all to get this, and this could be something you guys look up later and check out with those resources. Again, at Conservation Optimism's Kids Corner, our answer is Yurok. So the fewest of you picked this. This is not a common name for a lot of people to be familiar with, but hopefully after this broadcast, you take the opportunity to learn and get even more excited. YouTube group, start sharing questions in the chat. We'd love to hear from you. Miss Weirdsman, Miss Ross's class, we're coming to you live in just a second. Golden Dove, Golden Duck, who won? Claudia? Let's see. It's Silly Gator. That's not a bird. I mean, I'm happy for you. I am, but I don't know. We'll have to get a bird winner next time, I think. We've got a crocodile program tomorrow, though, if you're very keen. Let's head to Miss Ross's class. Joining us in Tavistock. If you guys want to come on in with a question, you're good to go. Hey, guys.
Hi, my name is Matthew. My question is, how far can condors see?
How far can they see? Good question.
Wow. That's a very good question. And I think I can't really give you an exact answer, but condors can fly very, very high, and they still manage to see if there is a dead mammal down there, so they can see several hundred meters.
So way, way better than us. And this is what I love about the birds of prey in general, is that they can see something with an acuity that people can't even hardly dream at. We need a telescope or binoculars to see how one of these birds see. Plus, their sense of smell is so unbelievable. The vulture family in general, I think the figure that I've classically heard is like over a mile away, they can smell rotting flesh, which is just unfathomable. I can barely smell coffee from across the kitchen. They can smell some rat somewhere way, way away. Great question to kick us off. Miss Weirdsmith's class, if you guys want to unmute your mic, turn on your camera, I'll come to you in a second. But while we're doing that, Claudia, you briefly referenced the Andean condor as well. I know our focus today is California condor, but do the people that work on those different birds work together in any way, or do you collaborate with Andean condor folks?
Yes, they do. So there are some organizations that are involved in the conservation of both species. One of them would be the Peregrine Fund. It's based in the US, but they are also doing work on the Andean condor. And of course, there is the IUCN Specialist Group for vultures. So they're in a constant exchange. And this is very, very crucial for conservation projects, that people discuss and share what is working and what is not working, so that they can all benefit from experience.
I've always loved this about conservation because, you grow up, you're passionate about something, you love wildlife, maybe you love a specific species, and then you get to work and sometimes travel all over the world to go study that species, and you get to collaborate with people globally. So your conversations every day are with people all over the globe that are the top of their field. And that's something that really makes science such a special enterprise, and particularly in the conservation world where it leads to such concrete and positive outcomes. So very cool. Miss Weirdsmith's class, you guys have a bunch of students right up at the camera. Come on in. Hey, guys.
So my question is, how far can they fly?
How far can they fly? In like one go or like total?
Like total.
Total, okay. The condor sets off, how far can he go?
So a condor can fly very long distances. So they can fly up to 200 kilometers. This is because they have to search for the carcasses of large mammals. This is a scarce resource. So you cannot find dead animals everywhere. So a condor has to fly a long distance in order to find something to feed on. And yes, they can regularly fly more than 100 kilometers and up to 200 kilometers.
I know this isn't related to our species of the day, but they just published a study with a bird that went about 13,000 kilometers. So if people want to check out, I think it's the bar-tailed godwit. Goes from south, like Australia, basically all the way up to the Arctic. So I love when people get sort of bird distance questions. And you'll note with condors too, we shared a few pictures of them sort of in and around these big canyons. Condors have such a broad wingspan that, like a lot of vultures, a lot of birds of prey, you won't see them so much flapping like a smaller bird. They'll just ride the hot air that comes up from these places and coast for long, long distances. Very cool.
Yeah, this is a very energy efficient way of moving forwards. So they just glide.
YouTube groups, if you guys want to share in the chat, please do. But I'll head back to Miss Ross's class live if you have another question for us. Come on in.
Hi, I'm Madison. And do they attack humans?
Do they attack humans, Claudia?
No, they wouldn't. No. They look very scary, obviously. Or they can look scary because they're so big, but they don't attack humans. No. In general, they just, they would only, attack in, dead animals. So they would eat you when you're dead and lying there. Then they would come and try and eat you, but they won't attack you while you're still alive.
This is like become a bigger program. Moral of the story is safety first when you're walking in sort of the deserts in California and more, because you don't want to be a condor snack. Miss Weirdsmith's class, back to you guys live. Come on in. You guys?
Why are faces so colorful?
Ooh.
This is a really, really good question. And I have to be honest, I have no idea why they are so colorful. This is just the way that a condor looks. But it's pretty cool, isn't it?
Pretty cool. So there's quite a few of the vulture family have these really fantastic heads. Egyptian vultures are quite yellow. We've got a lot of red. One thing you'll notice with condors and the other vultures is that they usually have a bald face and neck. And because if you're going to be plunging your head into the bodies of animals, you don't want to get all sorts of guts and blood up on the feathers around your face. And so the vulture family has evolved these really cool, sort of creepy looking to our eyes, but very, very functional heads. Very cool.
Yes.
Claudia, let's head. You know what? We're ripping through these. We've got kids lined up in our live classes, so I'm going to head to them. Miss Ross, come on in. Hey, guys. Hi.
Hi. Have you ever got bit by a condor?
Any getting bit by them, Claudia?
No.
Do people when they're rearing them, when people are releasing them, are they aggressive in any way? We had an aggressive question with penguins earlier today. So the condors just want to get away from people, or are they?
I think they'd rather just get away. I mean, of course, when you're close to a condor, you never know what it may react like. It's like every wild animal. If you bother it, then they may just try and defend themselves, but they well, they would not bite unless, you obviously, when you try to feed them something with your hand, then they may, get your finger accidentally, but they would not like actively try and bite you. They would not do that.
I love questions like this because really in 99% of instances, if you respect animals, you respect their space, you respect their habitat, you're never likely to be in a situation where they're going to injure you. Most animals will flee running away or flying away as fast as possible from people. There's only about a few creatures on this planet that will actively go for people to try and bite them. And so again, just use that level of respect and you're never going to end up in that situation. Miss Weird's class, come on back in, but you're going to take a few more questions from everybody live and on YouTube and end off there. Come on in, Miss Weird class. Hi.
Hi. What is the oldest
Condor?
condor in the world today?
Yeah.
The oldest. Condors can get very, very old. But interestingly enough, people are not exactly sure yet how old a California condor can get in the wild. They assume that they can get to 60 or 70 years even.
Wow.
So this is really, really old. But because they have only been started being reintroduced like in the 90s, they just don't know yet. So we will see that in a few more decades. But yeah, roughly 60 years.
Well, so kids in these programs, if they ended up being really inspired and keen on condors, they could work with the same condors that you released back in the 90s, which is amazing, right? Like what an incredible longevity for a bird. How cool is that?
Yeah, they can get as old as we get. Yeah.
Miss Bishop's class wants to know, do they ever stay in a pack or are they only individual?
No, they can actually congregate in large quantities near dead animals. So when they're feeding, you can find large groups of condors. But when they are breeding, they tend to keep away from others, from other individuals. So nests would be at least like 2 kilometers apart.
Okay.
But yes, they outside of the breeding season. So when they are feeding, they can be in large groups.
Okay. We're going to take 3 more questions, folks, and I want to stress again that we've got all sorts of resources we'll share at the end, so do stick around with us. But Miss Bishop, again, where do they sleep? Do they have big nests on the side of cliffs, or are they in trees? What's going on?
So they roost. This is what you call sleeping for birds. In places like on cliffs or also in trees. So they would not necessarily be somewhere out in a field or so on the flat ground, but they try to stick to like kind of mountainy areas and be high up somewhere. So yeah, rocks or even high trees.
Fantastic. I hope our students, if you get a chance to look up a condor roost at the end of the broadcast, they're really, really spectacular to witness. So very, very cool stuff. Miss Rosa's class, we're coming to you next. Miss Weirdmo, we'll wrap up with you in a minute, but come on in, guys. Hey.
Hi, my name is Sydney, and what eats them in the food chain?
Yes, does anything eat condors?
Who eats condors? Yeah. So it's not, I think there's not really animals that try and specifically hunt condors to eat them, but every large mammal that is large enough to kill something the size of a condor could try and eat them when they are like, sleeping, or also a chick that is in the nest. So yeah, large, probably
Coyotes,
something like that, a puma that finds one. Yeah.
I've never seen an instance of a condor being eaten by something, so I'm sure it happens somewhere, but it's not something that we're regularly having happen because they're such huge birds. You need a very substantial predator to take them on.
Yeah, and also they tend to stay quite hidden in like along the, on rocky cliffs, and so not many animals can actually reach them.
It's like if you have the option of going to your fridge for food or like scaling a mountain and like getting something off the edge, you're just going to go to the fridge, I think. Miss Weirdmo, one more question from you guys, and then we'll wrap up from there.
My question is, how fast can they fly?
Yes, condors.
They can fly quite fast because they have this gliding flight. So if they just extend their wings and soar, they can get really, really speedy. But yeah, as we said before, they are not really flapping their wings. So when they just sit there on their current and just glide through the air, they can get really fast.
Fantastic. Claudia, this has been so much fun. I want to stress again, for people that are keen to learn more, this is all part of our Hope for Wildlife series. We are doing this inspired by the amazing team at Nature for All and in conjunction with Conservation Optimism and our friends at the IUCN Green Status of Species, which is how we met you and got you involved in this amazing program series. So thank you all so much for coming here. Students, birdlife.org if you want to learn more about Claudia's incredible organization, BirdLife International. BirdLife News is on Twitter. And Claudia, is there a final message before we wrap up of how kids can keep the learning going and excited about this stuff?
I think what I would suggest you, what would be really, really cool is if you ever have the opportunity to go to the Western US,
Yes.
try and go to see a condor. They are in some national parks where they are relatively easy to see. Go and try to find one. They are so impressive creatures. Just go and have a look.
There are. Claudia, this has been so much fun. What we do to end every broadcast, I'm going to bring in our live classes to say a big thank you and farewell. So Miss Weirdsmith's class, unmute your mic. Miss Ross's class, join me at home on YouTube. Thank you all so much, everybody. Happy Halloween, everybody.